The night Lena Hart became property, she stood in a borrowed white dress that felt like a burial shroud. 23 years old, handed over like currency to a man who could end lives with a phone call. Adrian Vale, the name people whispered in back rooms, the man creditors feared more than bankruptcy. Her guardian had smiled during the vows, relief painted across his face like cheap makeup. Debt erased, problem solved. Now she waited in a bedroom that cost more than her entire life, knowing what came next. Knowing men, knowing pain. But what she didn't know, couldn't know, was that this particular monster had rules even he didn't understand yet. If you want to see how far this story travels, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. Let's see where Lena's journey reaches. The bedroom was too big. That was Lena's first coherent thought as she stood just inside the doorway, her fingers twisted together so tightly the knuckles had gone white. The space stretched out before her like a football field. King bed centered against the far wall, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city 40 stories below, furniture that probably cost more than most people made in a year. Everything in shades of gray and black and cold. She'd been in this room for maybe 3 minutes. It felt like 3 hours. The door clicked shut behind her, and her spine went rigid. Adrian Vale stood on the other side of the room, near those massive windows, his back to her. Tall, broad-shouldered in a way that suggested violence was always an option. His suit jacket was gone now, just the white shirt with sleeves rolled to his forearms. Dark hair touched with gray at the temples. 41 years old, someone had mentioned. Nearly twice her age. Her husband. The word tasted like metal in her mouth. You don't have to stand by the door. His voice was low, controlled. The kind of voice that didn't need to rise to be heard. Lena had learned to read voices the way some people read weather, predicting storms before the first drop of rain. This voice was complicated. Not angry, not eager, just flat. She didn't move. Adrian turned slightly, enough that she could see his profile. Strong jaw. Straight nose that looked like it had been broken at least once. Eyes that were some shade between blue and gray. The color of frozen water. There's a bathroom through there. He nodded toward a door on the left. You can change. There are clothes in the closet. I'll be in my office. Lena blinked. That didn't match the script she'd prepared herself for. Her voice came out scratchy, unused. She cleared her throat. You want me to change? I imagine you want out of that dress. She did. The thing was too tight across the ribs, borrowed from someone who'd been 2 sizes smaller. But the offer felt like a trick, and Lena had learned not to trust tricks. Adrian's gaze moved over her, not in the way she'd expected, not lingering anywhere it shouldn't, clinical, almost, reading her the same way she'd been reading him. I'm going to have a drink, he said. Then I have some calls to make. You should eat something. Kitchen's downstairs, second door on the right. Or you can order anything you want. He pulled a phone from his pocket, set it on the dresser near her. That's yours. No restrictions. Then he walked past her, giving her a wide berth, like she was a spooked animal that might bolt, and left the room. The door didn't lock behind him. Lena stood there for a full minute, waiting for the punchline, for him to come back, for the real night to begin. Nothing. Just silence and that too big room and the phone on the dresser that might be a test. She moved on legs that felt disconnected from her body, picked up the phone. New. Expensive. No lock screen. She opened it, half expecting some kind of monitoring app, something that would tell her this was just control wearing a different mask. But it was clean. Empty. Hers, apparently. Lena set it back down like it might explode. The bathroom was through the door he'd indicated, all marble and chrome, bigger than the bedroom she'd grown up in. There was a robe hanging on a hook, white and impossibly soft. She touched it, then pulled her hand back. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The makeup someone had applied that morning was smudged now, running slightly at the corners of her eyes. The dress hung wrong, the zipper biting into her spine. Her dark hair had been forced into some kind of updo that was already falling apart, pins digging into her scalp. She looked like a child playing dress-up in someone else's life. 23 years old. How was that even possible? Lena reached back, fumbling for the zipper. Her fingers shook badly enough that it took 3 tries. When she finally got it down, the relief was immediate. She could breathe, could move. The dress pooled around her feet and she stepped out of it, leaving it there on the pristine bathroom floor like a shed skin. The robe was next. She pulled it on, cinched it tight, and for the first time in 14 hours, her body stopped screaming. She should eat. He'd said to eat. But the thought of going downstairs, of navigating a strange house, of potentially running into him again. Her stomach made the decision for her, cramping hard enough to hurt. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten. Yesterday, maybe. Before Donald had told her what was happening. Before the reality had set in. Donald. The man who'd raised her. Guardian, not father. He'd always been specific about that. 15 years of his roof over her head. 15 years of rules and corrections and lessons learned the hard way. And now she was here. This is better, she told herself, staring at her reflection. This has to be better. She didn't quite believe it. The kitchen was easier to find than she'd expected, down the wide staircase, past a living room that looked like it had never been lived in, through a hallway lined with art that probably cost more than several lifetimes. The lights came on automatically when she entered. Motion sensors. The entire space was sleek and modern, all stainless steel and white quartz, big enough to cook for a restaurant. Everything was immaculate, unused. Lena opened the refrigerator, half expecting it to be empty. Rich people didn't cook, right? But it was fully stocked. Milk, eggs, fresh vegetables, actual food, not just takeout containers. She made toast. That felt safe. Toast was hard to mess up. While bread heated in a toaster that probably cost more than a car, she explored the space carefully. Every cabinet she opened revealed organization that bordered on compulsive, spices alphabetized, dishes arranged by size. Nothing out of place. She wondered if he'd done this himself or if there was staff. She hadn't seen anyone else. No one at the ceremony except her, Adrian, Donald, and someone who might have been a lawyer. No reception, no celebration, just signatures on paper and a car ride to this building in silence. The toast popped up. She buttered it mechanically, then stood at the counter eating because sitting at the massive dining table visible through the archway felt presumptuous. She was on her second piece when she heard footsteps. Adrian appeared in the doorway, stopped when he saw her. He'd changed too. Dark jeans, black t-shirt. Somehow he looked more dangerous casual than he had in the suit. You found it. Not a question. Lena nodded, swallowing toast that suddenly felt like sand. He moved to the coffee maker, started it with the ease of routine. Didn't look at her. There's a bedroom on the 3rd floor, east side. It has its own bathroom. You can use that one if you prefer. She didn't understand. Instead of the master bedroom, he pulled a cup from the cabinet. You don't have to share space with me. The words didn't make sense. They'd been married 6 hours ago. This was supposed to be, I don't understand what you want, she said quietly. Adrian's hand paused halfway to the coffee maker. He turned, really looked at her. Those frozen water eyes were harder to read than his voice. I don't want anything from you. That's not how this works. It's how this works in my house. Lena's fingers tightened on the toast. Donald said, I don't give a fuck what Donald said. The profanity was so casual, so matter-of-fact, that it took her a second to process it. Adrian's expression hadn't changed. No anger, no heat, just flat certainty. He told you things, Adrian continued, about what I'd expect, what I'd require. I imagine none of it was pleasant. Lena didn't respond. Couldn't. Whatever he said, discard it. Adrian poured his coffee, added nothing to it. You're safe here. That's the only expectation. Safe, she repeated. The word felt foreign. Safe. From what? He took a drink of coffee, studying her over the rim of the cup. From me. From him. From whatever comes next. Nothing's free. No. He set the cup down. Nothing is. But the payment isn't what you think. Then what is it? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the city hummed 40 stories below, oblivious. Time, he said finally. That's all. Just time. I don't know what that means. You will. He left her there in the kitchen with her toast and her confusion, his footsteps receding down the hallway. Lena stood very still, trying to map this new territory. trying to understand the rules of a game she hadn't known existed. Safe, he'd said. She'd believe that when she saw it. The bedroom on the third floor was smaller than the master suite, though still twice the size of anywhere Lena had ever slept. Queen bed. Simple furniture, windows that overlooked a different section of the city. There were clothes in the closet, all new, all in her size. He'd known she was coming, had prepared. The thought should have been comforting. Instead, it made her skin crawl. How long had Donald been planning this? How long had Adrian? She locked the door, tested it twice to make sure, then stood in the middle of the room trying to decide what to do next. It was barely 9 p.m. Too early to sleep, even if her body hadn't been vibrating with adrenaline. Too late to do anything else. She was trapped in this strange limbo, waiting for something to happen even though nothing was happening. Finally, she went to the window, pressed her forehead against the cool glass. The city stretched out below like scattered diamonds. She'd never been this high before, never seen anything like this. It was beautiful in a distant, untouchable way. You're safe here. Why would he say that? What did he gain from it? Men didn't protect. They took. That was the lesson Donald had taught her over and over, year after year. Protection was just another word for possession. But Adrian had left her alone, had given her space, had told her she was safe. Maybe that was just a different kind of control. Lena pulled the robe tighter, suddenly cold despite the perfect climate control. Her back ached, the old familiar ache from scars that never quite stopped hurting. She reached back automatically, pressing against the worst of them through the thick fabric. She wondered if Adrian had noticed them, if he'd seen, and that's why he'd changed his mind about, no, stop. That thinking led nowhere good. She forced herself to move, to explore the space that was supposedly hers. The bathroom had the same marble luxury as the master suite. The closet held more clothes than she'd owned in her entire life. The dresser drawers were lined with tissue paper. Everything was perfect, prepared, waiting. Lena sat on the edge of the bed, springs giving beneath her weight, the most comfortable mattress she'd ever felt, and tried to process the last 24 hours. Yesterday morning, she had been in Donald's house, same as always. Cleaning, cooking, staying quiet and small and useful. The routine she'd perfected over 15 years. Then he'd called her into his office. Sit down, Lena. She'd sat. Always sat when told. We have a situation. Financial difficulties. Nothing you need to worry about, but it requires a solution. His voice had been smooth, practiced. The voice he used when teaching her lessons. I've arranged something, a marriage, beneficial for everyone involved. The words hadn't made sense at first. Marriage, who would want? Adrian Vale, you'll have heard the name. She had, everyone had. The man who controlled half the city's underground. The one creditors called when other methods failed. The one people disappeared around. It's already settled. Tomorrow, simple ceremony, then you'll move to his residence. No discussion, no choice, just facts delivered like a weather report. Lena had opened her mouth, to protest, to ask, to something, but the look on Donald's face had stopped her. This is what's happening, Lena. You should be grateful. Many women would kill for this opportunity. Opportunity? That's what he'd called it. He's a powerful man, wealthy. You'll want for nothing, except freedom, except choice, except... And Lena? Don't embarrass me. Don't make me regret raising you. You know better than that. The threat underneath the words had been clear. She knew what happened when she embarrassed him. Her back remembered. So she'd nodded, said yes, played her part. And now she was here. Lena lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep felt impossible, but she was exhausted down to her bones. The kind of tired that came from holding yourself together through something that should have broken you. Maybe she'd broken anyway. Maybe this was what broken felt like, lying in luxury, wearing someone else's robe, trying to understand why a man who bought her wasn't demanding payment. Time, he'd said, just time. She didn't know what that meant, but she was fairly certain she was going to find out. Lena woke to sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to cover and a moment of pure panic before memory returned. Adrian's house. Adrian's building, her wedding night, except it hadn't been. She sat up slowly, checking her surroundings. Everything was the same. Door still locked, clothes still in the closet, the robe she'd fallen asleep in twisted around her legs. 9 a.m., according to the clock on the nightstand. Her body ached, tension held too long, muscles locked in defensive positions even during sleep. She stretched carefully, feeling each protest. A shower, that's what she needed. Hot water and privacy and a few minutes to think. The bathroom was as perfect as the rest of the space. She found towels, soap, shampoo, all expensive brands she didn't recognize. The shower had about 15 different settings. She chose the simplest and let water hot enough to hurt pound against her shoulders. She didn't cry. She'd learned a long time ago that crying didn't help. It just made things worse. Made her weak. Made her a target. But standing under water that cost more per minute than she'd ever earned in an hour, in a bathroom bigger than most apartments, married to a man who terrified entire city blocks. It took everything she had not to break. When she finally shut off the water, the mirror was completely fogged. She wiped it clear with her palm, looked at herself. Same face, same dark eyes, same scars on her back that she couldn't see but always felt. Different everything else. She dried off, found underwear in the dresser, all new, all her size, which should have stopped being creepy but hadn't, and pulled on jeans and a sweater from the closet. Simple clothes, normal clothes, the kind of things she'd never been allowed to wear at Donald's house. Dresses, he'd always said. Women wear dresses. Unless you want people to think you're not a woman? The jeans felt like rebellion, small, but hers. Lena unlocked the bedroom door, listened. No sounds from the rest of the house. Maybe Adrian had left. Maybe she had the place to herself. Maybe she could figure out what the hell she was supposed to do now. The kitchen seemed like the safest destination. She made her way downstairs, more confident in daylight. The house was just as immaculate as it had been last night. Still that sense of being unlived in despite the expensive everything. She found coffee, a different, more complicated machine than the one Adrian had used, and spent 10 minutes figuring out how to make it work. The first cup came out too weak. The second was better. She was standing at the counter, drinking it black because she didn't know if adding milk was allowed, when Adrian appeared. He looked like he'd been up for hours. Showered, dressed in dark slacks and a gray button-down. He had his phone in one hand, was typing something as he walked. "Morning," he said without looking up. "Morning." Her voice came out steadier than she'd expected. He finished whatever he was typing, pocketed the phone, looked at her properly. "You slept?" "Yes." "Good." He moved around her, giving her space again, that same wide berth, and started the coffee maker. She watched him work, efficient movements that suggested routine. "I have meetings today," he said. "I'll be out until evening. Marco will be around. He handles security. You need anything? Ask him." Lena nodded, though she had no intention of asking anyone named Marco for anything. "The apartment is yours to explore." Adrian pulled espresso from the machine, straight shot, no additions. "There's a gym on the 5th floor, pool on 6, library on 4. Building has pretty much everything." "Okay." "And Lena?" She tensed at the use of her name. "Yes?" "You're not a prisoner here." His eyes met hers, that frozen water blue. "You can leave any time. Building, city, state, your choice." "Where would I go?" The question came out before she could stop it. Honest, raw. Adrian's expression didn't change. "Anywhere but back to Donald." "Why?" "Because I'll kill him if he touches you again." The words were delivered in the same flat tone he'd used to tell her about the gym. Casual. Matter of fact. Completely sincere. Lena's coffee cup trembled slightly in her hand. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." "How?" "I make it my business to know things." He drank his espresso in one swallow, rinsed the cup, set it in the sink, checked his watch. "I need to go. Marco's number is in your phone if you need it. Mine too." He was almost to the door when Lena spoke again. "Adrian?" He stopped, turned. "What do you want from this?" "From me?" For the first time, something crossed his face. Not quite emotion, but close to it. Something that might have been sadness in a different context. "I want you to stop flinching when I walk past." Then he left. Lena stood in the enormous kitchen with her coffee, trying to process that. Stop flinching. As if it were that simple. As if fear was something you could just set down. But maybe that was the point. Maybe that was the time he'd mentioned. Time to stop flinching. She almost laughed. It came out as a sound somewhere between humor and hysteria, quickly swallowed. Then she finished her coffee and started exploring the house that was supposedly hers. The fourth-floor library was Lena's favorite discovery. Wall-to-wall books, 3 of the walls at least. The fourth was all windows showing the city in bright afternoon light. There were chairs that looked like they'd swallow you whole, a fireplace that probably worked, and silence that felt different from the silence in the rest of the house. This silence felt lived in. She ran her fingers along book spines, reading titles. Fiction mixed with nonfiction. History, next to philosophy, next to thrillers. No organization she could detect, just books someone had actually wanted, not books chosen for display. She pulled one at random, something about Roman emperors, and settled into one of those swallowing chairs. The words swam in front of her eyes for the first few pages. She couldn't concentrate. Her mind kept circling back to the morning, to Adrian's flat statement about killing Donald, to the casual way he'd said it. "I'll kill him if he touches you again." Again. So he did know, had seen, had understood what the scars meant. Lena's back ached, phantom pains from real damage. Belt, extension cord, whatever was handy when lessons needed teaching. Donald had been creative, methodical, never the face, never anywhere that would show. A father's duty, he'd said. Raising you properly. You should be grateful. 15 years of grateful. She forced her attention back to the book. Roman emperors. Power and corruption. Blood and legacy. Fitting, maybe. She read until the light started to fade, until her eyes burned and her body reminded her she hadn't eaten since toast the night before. The kitchen felt less intimidating on round 2. She found pasta, sauce in a jar, cheese in the refrigerator. Made enough for one, ate standing at the counter. It was dark when Adrian came home. She heard the door first, that particular click of a lock that made her spine straighten automatically. Then footsteps. He didn't come to the kitchen, though, just moved past toward what she assumed was his office. Lena washed her single dish, dried it, put it away. Stood there wondering if she was supposed to do something else. Greet him, report her day, ask permission. But he'd said she wasn't a prisoner. She went back upstairs to her room, locked the door, and tried to remember how to breathe normally. A pattern emerged over the next 3 days. Adrian left early, came home late. They crossed paths in the kitchen, in hallways, once in the library when he came to get a book. Each time he maintained that careful distance, never crowding her space, always giving her an exit. Each time he spoke to her, it was brief, polite, asking if she needed anything, telling her about something in the building she might want to use, never demanding, never expecting. It was stranger than any cruelty would have been. Lena spent her days exploring the building, learning its rhythms. The gym on 5 was empty most of the time, all high-end equipment she didn't know how to use. The pool on 6 was pristine, unused. The library remained her refuge. She met Marco on day 2. Big guy, friendly face, accent that suggested Brooklyn. He nodded when he saw her, smiled like she was normal. "You need anything? You let me know, Mrs. Vale." Mrs. Vale. The name was still foreign. "Thank you," she managed. "Mr. Vale wants you comfortable. Anything you need." She wanted to ask what Adrian had told him, if he knew the truth about this arrangement, but Marco's expression suggested he either knew everything or knew to pretend he didn't. On day 4, Lena was in the library again when Adrian appeared, different from the other times. He looked tired, stressed in some way she couldn't quite define. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, top button undone, hair slightly disheveled. Human, she realized. He looked human. "Sorry," he said. "Didn't know you were here. It's your house." "Your house, too." Lena didn't argue, but they both knew it wasn't true. Adrian moved to the bookshelves, scanned titles. She watched him, trying to understand what he was looking for. "You read a lot," he said without turning around. "I didn't have much else to do before." "Before here?" "Before anything." He pulled a book, something with a black spine, and turned to face her. "Donald didn't let you go to school." Not a question, statement of fact. "He homeschooled me until I was 16. Then I didn't need school anymore. I needed to be useful." Adrian's jaw tightened fractionally. Useful. Cooking, cleaning, managing his household. You were a child. I was his responsibility. That's not the same thing. Lena closed her book, marked the page with her finger. Why do you care? Why wouldn't I? Because I'm no one. Nothing. The words came out flat, factual. The truth Donald had taught her. Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides, not threatening but purposeful, and stopped about 6 feet away, close enough she could see his eyes clearly. Far enough she didn't feel trapped. Listen to me carefully, he said. You are not nothing. You are not no one. And whatever he told you about your value, it was a lie designed to keep you small. Lena's throat closed. You don't know. I know enough. I know he took a child and broke her down systematically for 15 years. I know he told you it was love. I know he made you believe you deserved it. Stop. I know that every scar on your back is evidence of his failure, not yours. Stop. The word came out louder than she'd intended, harsh, almost a shout. Adrian stopped. Silence filled the library, thick and uncomfortable. Lena's hands were shaking. Her book had fallen to the floor. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean... Don't apologize. Adrian's voice was quiet again, controlled. You're allowed to tell me to stop. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to feel whatever you feel. I'm not angry. Okay. I'm not. Okay. But she was. She was furious at Donald, at herself, at Adrian for seeing too much, at the world for teaching her that survival meant silence. She was angry, and she had nowhere to put it except down, buried, locked away, where it couldn't hurt her. Adrian bent down, picked up her book, set it on the table beside her chair. I'm going to say something, he said, and I need you to hear it. Really, hear it. Lena nodded because she didn't trust her voice. What happened to you was not your fault. The abuse, the control, the years of being told you were nothing, none of it was your fault. And you don't owe me gratitude for treating you like a human being. That's baseline. That's the minimum. Do you understand? She didn't. Not really. But she nodded again. I don't need you to believe it right now, Adrian continued, but I need you to know I believe it. And I need you to know that in this house, you don't have to be small. You don't have to be quiet. You don't have to be perfect. What if I don't know how to be anything else? Then you learn. How? Time, he said. Remember, that's all it takes. Just time. There was that word again. Time. Like it was magic. Like it could fix things that felt permanently broken. Adrian moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. What? If you want to yell at me again, do it. I can take it. I've survived worse than being shouted at by someone who has every right to be angry. Then he left, taking his book and his exhaustion with him. Lena sat in the swallowing chair, surrounded by books and silence, and wondered if maybe, just maybe, she'd found someone who wouldn't hurt her for existing. It seemed impossible. But then again, 3 days ago, everything had seemed impossible. On day 7, Donald called. Lena was in the kitchen making lunch, actual lunch, experimenting with ingredients she'd never been allowed to use before, when the phone Adrian had given her rang. Unknown number, but she knew. Something in her gut recognized the pattern of the ring, the timing, the way dread settled in her chest before she even looked. She almost didn't answer, but that was worse, wasn't it? Not knowing, waiting for the other shoe to drop. She swiped to accept, lifted the phone to her ear. Hello? Lena. Donald's voice, warm and paternal. The voice he used in public. Sweetheart, how are you? The endearment made her stomach clench. I'm fine. Good, good. I've been worried. You haven't called. I've been settling in. Of course, completely understandable. It's a big change. A pause, carefully calculated. Are you being treated well? The question had hooks in it, trap laid and waiting. Yes. I'm glad. Adrian is a good man, a bit rough around the edges, but good at heart. You'll be very happy. Lena didn't respond. Couldn't. I thought perhaps we could have lunch, Donald continued. Catch up properly. I'd love to hear how married life is treating you. Tomorrow, perhaps? That little Italian place you always liked? She'd never liked that Italian place. He'd liked it. She'd just gone along. I don't think… Lena. The warmth disappeared. Don't tell me you're too busy for the man who raised you, who gave you everything. There it was, the edge under the kindness. It's not that… Noon tomorrow. I'll make a reservation. You remember the address. The line went dead. Lena stood holding the phone, her hands shaking badly enough that she had to set it down before she dropped it. Donald wanted to see her. Donald thought he still had rights to her time, her obedience, her life. And the worst part? A piece of her, small, damaged, trained, wanted to say yes. Wanted to show up, wanted to prove she was still good, still grateful, still his, even knowing what that meant, even knowing how it would feel. She was still standing there, frozen in her own kitchen, when Adrian came home early. He took one look at her face and stopped. What happened? Nothing. Lena. Just a phone call. His eyes dropped to the phone on the counter. From? She couldn't say it, couldn't form the word. Adrian picked up the phone, checked something. His expression went very still, very careful. He wants to see you. Tomorrow. Lunch. And you said? I didn't say anything. He just told me to be there. Adrian set the phone down with deliberate gentleness, like it might explode. Do you want to go? Does it matter? Yes. Lena looked at him, this man who'd bought her but hadn't touched her, who'd given her space and time in something that almost felt like choice. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me thinks I should. He raised me. I owe him. You owe him nothing. He's my family. He's your abuser. The word hung between them, sharp and ugly and true. But you can go, Adrian said quietly. If you want, if you need to, I won't stop you. Why not? Because it's your choice. He met her eyes. But Lena, if you go, I'm going with you. He won't like that. I don't care what he likes. It'll make him angry. Good. Lena's breath caught. Adrian, you don't have to decide right now. Think about it. Sleep on it. Tomorrow morning, you tell me what you want to do, and we'll do it. And if I say I want to go alone, then I'll respect that, but I'll be close. And the second you need me, I'm there. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that wasn't necessary, that she was fine, that she could handle Donald, but the lies stuck in her throat. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Adrian moved past her to the coffee maker, that wide berth again, but paused halfway. For what it's worth. You don't owe him lunch. You don't owe him conversation. You don't owe him a single goddamn second of your time. And if he made you feel otherwise, that's on him, not you. Then he made his coffee and disappeared into his office, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts and a decision that shouldn't have been this hard. To see Donald or not. To face the past or hide from it. To prove she was strong enough or admit she wasn't. She made herself finish preparing lunch, ate mechanically, tasting nothing, cleaned up, went to her room, lay on the bed staring at the ceiling while the city hummed outside, and tried to figure out who she was now that someone had given her permission to choose. She didn't sleep. Lena lay in the dark watching shadows move across the ceiling, her mind circling the same questions over and over until they blurred together into white noise. See Donald or don't? Go or stay? Prove something or protect herself? By the time gray light started seeping through the windows, she'd made a decision. Not because she wanted to, but because the not knowing felt worse than any answer. She found Adrian in the kitchen at 6:30, already dressed, already on his second cup of coffee. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression suggested he hadn't slept much either. I want to go, Lena said before she could change her mind. To lunch. I need to see him. Adrian set down his cup slowly. You're sure? No, but I'm going anyway. Okay? He checked his watch. The reservation's at noon? That's what he said. Then we leave at 11:30. Gives us time. For what? To make sure you're not walking in there alone. The Italian place was exactly as Lena remembered. White tablecloths, soft lighting designed to hide how mediocre the food was. The kind of restaurant that charged for ambiance over quality. Donald had always liked places like this. Respectable, traditional, where everyone knew how to behave. They arrived 10 minutes early. Since Adrian had driven a black sedan that probably cost more than most houses, his hand steady on the wheel while Lena's twisted together in her lap. "You can still change your mind," he said as he pulled into a parking space. "I know. And if at any point you want to leave, you'll be there. You said." He had. In the car, he'd explained the plan. He'd go in with her but sit at a different table. Close enough to see, far enough to give them space. Donald would hate it. That was part of the point. Now, sitting in the parked car, Lena tried to remember how to breathe normally. "He's going to be angry," she said, "that you came." "I hope so." "Adrian." "Lena." He turned to face her fully. "Whatever happens in there, whatever he says, remember one thing. You're not his anymore. You don't answer to him. You don't owe him explanations. And if he tries to make you feel like you do, that's manipulation, not truth." She nodded because speaking felt impossible. They got out of the car. Adrian's hand hovered near her lower back, not touching, just there, a presence, a reminder. They walked into the restaurant together. Donald was already seated. Of course he was. Punctuality had been one of his lessons, taught with repetition and consequences until it became reflex. He looked exactly the same as he had a week ago. Neat gray hair, expensive suit. That smile that had always made Lena's stomach hurt. The smile faltered when he saw Adrian. "Lena," he said, standing. "Sweetheart, you look wonderful." She didn't. She'd barely slept, could feel the exhaustion in her bones. But Donald had never cared about truth, only presentation. "Thank you for coming," he continued, moving forward like he might hug her. Lena stepped back before she could stop herself. Donald's eyes flickered, noting the reaction, filing it away. "I didn't realize we'd be having company." His gaze shifted to Adrian, assessment in every line of his expression. "I go where my wife goes," Adrian said evenly. "Of course, though I had hoped for some private time, family conversation." "She has family now. I'm it." The words were polite enough, but the steel underneath was unmistakable. Donald heard it. His smile tightened fractionally. "Well then, the more the merrier." He gestured to the table. "Shall we?" Lena sat. Adrian took the chair beside her, not across. Closer than she'd expected. Close enough that his presence was a physical thing, a wall between her and Donald. The waiter appeared, took drink orders. Water for Lena, scotch for Donald, coffee for Adrian. Small rituals of civilization while tension built like pressure before a storm. "So," Donald said once the waiter left, "tell me everything. How's married life? Is Adrian treating you well? He's been very kind." "Kind? That's good. That's what I'd hoped." He leaned forward slightly. "You know I only want the best for you, Lena. Everything I did, it was to prepare you for this. For a good life with a good man." Lena's throat closed. She managed a nod. "I'll admit I worried," Donald continued, "when Adrian first approached me about the arrangement. A man of his reputation. But I could see he had depth, character. The kind of man who understands what it means to take care of a woman properly." Adrian's coffee cup paused halfway to his mouth. "And what does that mean to you? Taking care of a woman properly?" "Providing for her, protecting her, guiding her when necessary." Donald's eyes never left Lena. "Women need structure, boundaries. It's not cruelty. It's love." "Is that what you told yourself?" Adrian set down his cup. "When you put those scars on her back?" The restaurant noise seemed to dim. Lena's heartbeat was suddenly very loud in her ears. Donald's expression didn't change, but something cold moved behind his eyes. "I don't know what lies she's told you." "She hasn't told me anything. I saw them. The night we married. 15 years worth of love from the look of it." "Discipline," Donald corrected quietly. "There's a difference. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Surely you understand the necessity of correction." "I understand you beat a child for 15 years and convinced her it was for her own good." "I raised an orphan no one else wanted. I gave her a home, food, education. Everything she has because of me." Lena's hands clenched in her lap hard enough that her nails bit into her palms. The words were so familiar, worn smooth from repetition. How many times had she heard them? How many times had she believed them? "And in return," Adrian said, voice still level, still controlled, You wanted what? Gratitude? Obedience? A daughter you could break down and rebuild in whatever image suited you? I wanted to prepare her for the world. It's a harsh place, Adrian. Surely a man in your position understands that. Weakness gets exploited. So you exploited her first. I protected her. You abused her. Donald's facade cracked slightly. You've known her a week. Don't presume to understand our relationship, what we've been through together, the bond we share. The trauma bond, you mean? Call it what you like. I know her. I raised her. I molded her into exactly the kind of woman a man like you would want. Quiet, obedient, grateful for small kindnesses. His eyes found Lena again. And she is grateful, aren't you, sweetheart? Tell him. Tell him how good I was to you. The words hung in the air, hooks waiting to catch. Lena's mouth opened. No sound came out. All those years, all those lessons, all the times Donald had asked her to speak, and the answer had always been the same. Yes. Thank you. I'm grateful. Whatever you want to hear. The script was automatic, survival written into her bones. But Adrian's hand moved under the table, came to rest near hers. Not touching. Just there. Present. Real. Lena, Donald said again. Tell him. She looked at the man who'd raised her, the man who'd taught her that love came with conditions and mistakes came with consequences, the man who'd made her small enough to fit in his world. You hurt me, she whispered. Donald blinked. What? You hurt me. Louder this time. For years. Every time I made a mistake, every time I wasn't perfect. You hurt me. That's not... I was teaching you. You beat me with whatever was handy and told me it was for my own good. Lena, you're being dramatic. You're letting him poison your mind. I have scars, Donald. Actual scars. From your lessons. I never hit your face. I was careful. He stopped, realizing what he'd admitted. The silence that followed was deafening. Adrian's hand moved to actually touch hers now, just his fingers over her knuckles, grounding her. This lunch is over, Adrian said quietly. I'm her family, Donald said. Her guardian. You can't just... She's 23 years old. She's not yours anymore. And she never was. I have rights. You have nothing. Adrian stood, brought Lena up with him. Stay away from her. Don't call. Don't visit. Don't contact her in any way. Are we clear? Donald's face had gone red. You can't dictate. Watch me. Lena? Donald looked past Adrian like he wasn't even there. Don't let him do this. Don't throw away 15 years. I'm your family. I'm all you have. And there it was. The fear he'd always planted. The certainty that without him, she was nothing. That she needed him more than he needed her. But standing there with Adrian's solid presence beside her, with her own words still echoing in the space, Lena felt something shift. No, she said, you're not. She turned and walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't give Donald the satisfaction of seeing her break. Adrian was beside her in 3 strides, his hand steady on her elbow as they pushed through the restaurant doors into sunlight that felt too bright, too normal for the moment. They made it to the car. Adrian unlocked it, opened her door. She climbed in on legs that barely worked. He got in the driver's side, started the engine, but didn't pull out of the parking space. Lena! Don't, her voice cracked. Please don't. Not yet. He went quiet, just sat there with the engine running while she pressed her hands against her face and tried not to fall completely apart. The breakdown came in waves. No tears, just shaking that started in her hands and moved through her entire body. 15 years of swallowed words. 15 years of being small. 15 years of believing that survival meant silence. And she'd spoken. She'd looked Donald in the eye and told him the truth, had called the abuse by its name, had chosen herself over his version of reality. The shaking got worse. Her breath came in gasps that didn't quite fill her lungs. Adrian's hand appeared in her peripheral vision, palm up, offered. Not demanding, just there if she wanted it. She grabbed it like a lifeline. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid and real. He didn't try to talk her down. Didn't tell her to calm down or that it was okay. Just held her hand while she came apart. It took maybe 10 minutes for the shaking to subside enough that she could breathe normally again. When she finally looked at him, his expression was carefully neutral. I'm sorry, she managed. For what? for falling apart. You didn't fall apart. You held it together through that conversation, got yourself to the car, and then let yourself feel something. That's not falling apart. That's surviving. It doesn't feel like surviving. It never does in the moment. He pulled out of the parking space, merged into traffic. They drove in silence for a while, the city passing by outside the windows. Lena watched it without really seeing anything. He's going to be angry, she said eventually. Let him be angry. He'll try to contact me again. Then we'll deal with it. You shouldn't have to see... Lena. Adrian's voice was firm. This is not a burden you're putting on me. This is not some obligation I'm grudgingly accepting. He hurt you for years, and now he's trying to maintain control by making you feel guilty for escaping. I'm not letting that happen. Why? The question came out raw, exhausted. Adrian was quiet for several blocks. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, quieter, more honest than she'd heard before. Because someone should have stopped him years ago. And no one did. And I can't change the past, but I can sure as hell control what happens now. You barely know me. I know enough. That's not an answer. He pulled up to a red light, turned to look at her properly. My mother spent 20 years with a man who thought discipline and love were the same thing. I watched her shrink a little more every day, watched her apologize for existing, watched her believe she deserved it. The light turned green. He accelerated smoothly. When I was 15, she left him, took me and my sister and walked out with nothing but the clothes we were wearing. Best thing she ever did. But it took 20 years to get there. 20 years of thinking she had nowhere else to go. Lena processed this new information slowly. Where is she now? Safe, happy, living in Vermont with a man who treats her like she's human. A pause. And every time I see a woman in the same situation she was in, I think about those 20 years, about what it cost her, what it cost my sister, what it cost me, watching and being too young to do anything about it. So I'm your good deed? You're a person in a shit situation who needed an exit. I provided one. That's all. That's not all. No, he admitted. It's not, but it's enough for now. They pulled into the underground parking garage. Adrian cut the engine, sat there with his hand still on the wheel. I need to tell you something, he said. About Donald. Lena's stomach dropped. What? When he approached me about the arrangement, about marrying you, it wasn't his idea. I approached him. What? Why? Because I'd heard things, rumors, about a man who kept his ward locked down tight, who never let her out of his sight, who had very specific ideas about obedience. His jaw tightened. I started looking into him, found out about his debts, his vices, the way he'd been using you as collateral for years without you knowing. So I made him an offer, his debts cleared in exchange for you. The words landed like physical blows. You bought me. Yes. You knew what he was doing, and I knew what he was doing, and I wanted to get you out. This was the only way he'd let you go. You could have called the police. And said what? That I suspected abuse? With no proof? No testimony from you? Lena, cases like that take years if they go anywhere at all. And in the meantime, you'd still be in that house. Still under his control. Still being hurt. So you just bought me instead. I paid off his debts and signed a piece of paper. Yes. But I never intended, I didn't want... He stopped, frustrated. I know how it sounds. I know what it looks like. But I also know that you're here now, and he can't touch you, and that matters more than whether my methods were clean. Lena stared at him. This man who'd orchestrated her freedom like a business transaction, who'd manipulated Donald the same way Donald had manipulated her, who'd given her space and time and choices, but had started the whole thing without her consent or knowledge. I don't know what to do with that information, she said finally. You don't have to do anything with it. I just needed you to know. No secrets, no lies. Just manipulation, just survival. She got out of the car before he could say anything else. Walked to the elevator with him following a few steps behind. They rode up in silence. When they reached the apartment, Lena went straight to her room, locked the door, sat on the edge of the bed and tried to process everything that had happened in the last 3 hours. Donald's face, his certainty, his genuine belief that he'd been right, Adrian's confession, the deliberate orchestration, the moral calculus that said buying her was better than leaving her, her own voice saying the words she'd never been able to say before. "You hurt me." Such simple words, such an impossible sentence, and somehow she'd said them. The phone on her nightstand buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over, Lena. Family doesn't end because you had a tantrum. We'll talk soon." Donald. Of course. She stared at the message, waiting for the fear to kick in. The automatic apology, the need to make it right. It didn't come. Instead, she felt something else, something harder. Something that might have been anger if she knew how to recognize it properly. She forwarded the message to Adrian without comment. His reply came 30 seconds later. Blocked his number. He tries again. We get a restraining order. Then, a minute after that, "You did good today." Lena set down the phone, lay back on the bed, closed her eyes and tried to find steady ground in a world that had tilted sideways. She'd confronted Donald, had spoken truth, had watched Adrian reveal his own manipulation while claiming it was protection. And somehow she was still here, still breathing, still standing. Maybe that counted for something. The exhaustion hit her all at once. She barely managed to pull a blanket over herself before sleep dragged her under, deep and dreamless and necessary. When she woke, it was dark outside. The clock said 8 p.m. She'd slept for 6 hours. Her body ached like she'd been hit by a truck. Her head throbbed. Her mouth was dry. But she was alive. She dragged herself out of bed, went to the bathroom, splashed water on her face. The woman in the mirror looked haunted, tired. But there was something else there too. Something that hadn't been there before. She looked like someone who'd survived something. Downstairs, the apartment was quiet. She found Adrian in his office, door open, sitting at a massive desk covered in papers, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up when she appeared in the doorway. "Hey," he said. "Hey, you sleep okay?" "Better than expected." He nodded, took off the glasses. "There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry. Marco brought Chinese, too much for one person." "Okay." She should leave, let him work, but her feet wouldn't move. "Adrian?" "Yeah." "When you approached Donald, when you made the arrangement, did you know about the scars specifically, or just that something was wrong?" He was quiet for a moment. "I knew enough to guess. The way he controlled your movements, the long sleeves even in summer, the fact that no one had ever seen you outside his house without him, it painted a picture." "So you gambled." "I made an educated guess and acted on it." "And if you'd been wrong, if he'd been a good guardian and I'd been happy, then I would have made sure you had every resource to leave anyway if you wanted. No one should be trapped, even in a comfortable cage." Lena leaned against the door frame. "I don't know if what you did was right or wrong." "Me neither. But I'm glad I'm here, instead of there." Something in his expression softened. "Yeah? Yeah." They looked at each other across the space of his office, two people trying to figure out what happened next. "The Chinese food is getting cold," Adrian said finally. "Then we should probably eat it." "Probably should." In the kitchen, they unpacked containers in companionable silence. Fried rice, lo mein, dumplings, spring rolls. Marco had indeed brought too much for one person. They ate standing at the counter because sitting felt too formal. Adrian used chopsticks like he'd been doing it his whole life. Lena fumbled with them for about 30 seconds before giving up and grabbing a fork. "Not a chopstick person?" Adrian asked. "Never learned." "Donald didn't teach you?" Donald thought chopsticks were pretentious, said real Americans use forks. Adrian snorted. "Of course he did." "What?" "Nothing. Just very on-brand for a man who thinks discipline and abuse are the same thing." Lena stabbed a dumpling with possibly more force than necessary. "Can we not talk about him, just for tonight?" "Deal." They ate. The food was good. Better than good, actually. Lena hadn't realized how hungry she was until she started eating and couldn't stop. "So," Adrian said after a while, "the library. You've been spending a lot of time there. It's quiet. You like quiet? I like space where no one's watching me." "Fair enough." He grabbed another spring roll. "What have you been reading?" "Random stuff. History mostly. Some philosophy. That book about Roman emperors. Any good? Lots of murder and betrayal. Seemed appropriate. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Yeah, I guess it would. What about you? What do you read? Mostly work stuff. Business reports, financial projections, boring shit. But you have the library. All those books. My mother's. She moved up to Vermont and didn't want to haul them. Said I should keep them. Build a library like she'd always wanted. Do you use it? Sometimes, when I can't sleep. There's something about physical books, the weight of them, the smell. Screens don't do the same thing. Lena nodded. She understood that. The library had become her sanctuary because it felt real in a way the rest of the apartment didn't. You can keep using it, Adrian said. Obviously, it's your space as much as mine. I know. Do you? She looked at him. I'm starting to. They finished eating, cleaned up together, Adrian washing, Lena drying, another small ritual of normalcy in a situation that was anything but. I'm going to do some more work, Adrian said when the last dish was put away. You need anything? No, I think I'm going back to bed. Today was a lot. Yeah. Lena? She paused. What? What you said to him. At the restaurant. That took courage. Didn't feel like courage. Felt like survival. Sometimes they're the same thing. She thought about that as she headed back upstairs. Courage and survival. Two sides of the same coin. In her room, she lay in the dark thinking about the day. About Donald's face when she'd called the abuse by its name. About Adrian's confession in the car. About the text message and her own lack of fear. Something had changed. Something fundamental. She wasn't sure what came next. Wasn't sure how to be a person who spoke up instead of shutting down. Who claimed space instead of making herself small. But maybe that was okay. Maybe not knowing was part of the process. Adrian had said time. That's all it took. Just time. Maybe he'd been right. Lena closed her eyes and let sleep take her again, this time with something that almost felt like peace. The days that followed took on a rhythm Lena didn't quite know how to name. Not normal. Nothing about this was normal. But something steadier than the chaos that had come before. She woke up in her own room, made coffee in a kitchen that didn't feel like a minefield, spent hours in the library reading about people and places that had nothing to do with her life. Adrian came and went, always giving her space, always checking in without making it obvious that's what he was doing. It should have felt like relief. And it did, mostly. But underneath that relief was something else. Something restless and uncomfortable that Lena couldn't quite identify. On the fourth day after the restaurant, she found herself in the gym on the 5th floor. She'd been avoiding it. All that equipment looked expensive and complicated and easy to break, but the restlessness in her body needed an outlet. The treadmill seemed safe enough. She figured out the controls, started walking, then jogging, then running like something was chasing her. Her lungs burned, her legs protested, but the physical pain felt clean compared to everything else. Simple. Honest. She didn't hear Adrian come in until he spoke. You're going to hurt yourself if you keep that pace. Lena nearly jumped off the belt. She grabbed the handles, slowed to a walk, breathing hard. Adrian was by the weights, dressed in gym clothes she'd never seen him wear. He looked different like this. More human, the kind of person you'd pass on the street without a second glance. How long have you been here? She asked between breaths. About 10 minutes. You were focused. I didn't see you. That was obvious. He grabbed a set of dumbbells. You run before? Not really. Donald said it was unladylike. Of course he did. Adrian started curling the weights with mechanical precision. You like it? I don't know yet. My legs hurt. That means you're doing it right. Lena stepped off the treadmill, her legs shaking slightly. She should probably leave. Let him have his space. But something made her stay, moving to the mats in the corner and attempting a stretch that probably looked ridiculous. They worked out in silence for a while. Adrian moved through his routine like it was choreographed, weights to pull-ups to something complicated with resistance bands. Lena tried various machines, figuring out what hurt in a good way versus what just hurt. You don't have to leave when I'm here, Adrian said eventually, if that's what you're thinking. I wasn't. You looked like you were about to bolt. Lena abandoned her attempt at whatever the machine was supposed to do. I'm not used to sharing space. Not like this. Like what? Without expectations, without rules about what I'm supposed to be doing. Adrian set down his weights, grabbed a towel. What were the rules at Donald's? The question should have made her defensive. Instead, she found herself answering. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't ask questions. Don't touch anything that wasn't explicitly mine. Don't go outside without permission. Don't talk to neighbors. Don't use the phone. Don't have opinions. She ticked them off automatically, muscle memory of 15 years. Don't forget that everything I had was because of his generosity. That's not generosity. That's prison. I know that now. But you didn't then. I didn't have anything to compare it to. Lena moved to sit on one of the benches. When you're told something every day for years, it becomes true, even when it isn't. Adrian leaned against the wall, studying her. What's the hardest part now? Being here? Believing I'm allowed to exist without performing? You are. My brain knows that. The rest of me hasn't figured it out yet. Give it time. There was that word again. Time, like it was magic. Like it could fix things that felt fundamentally broken. Can I ask you something? Lena said. Always. Why do you live alone? In this huge place? No staff, no one around? Just you? Adrian's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. Control, mostly. I spent a lot of years with too many people in my space. This is the opposite of that. What do you mean? Prison, he said simply. 7 years. Got out when I was 28. The words dropped like stones. Lena stared at him. You were… Yeah. For what? Assault. Guy hurt someone I cared about. I hurt him back. Turns out the justice system frowns on that. But you're… She stopped, uncertain how to phrase it. Rich now? Yeah. Took some time, made some choices, built something from nothing. He shrugged. The money came later. The need for empty space stuck around. Lena processed this. Adrian Vale, feared crime figure, had been in prison, had served time, had built his empire from that foundation. Does it bother you? He asked. Knowing that? Should it? Some people think so. I think Donald never spent a day behind bars, and he's the worst person I know. So maybe the legal system isn't the best measure of who deserves what. Something that might have been approval crossed Adrian's face. Fair point. What was it like? Prison? Exactly what you'd expect. Violent, dehumanizing, full of people who'd been failed by every system designed to help them. He grabbed his water bottle, took a long drink. Taught me a lot about power, though. Who has it? How they use it? What happens to people who don't have any? Is that why you… Lena gestured vaguely, trying to encompass everything. All of this? Part of it. I learned that power isn't inherently good or bad. It's just a tool. The question is what you do with it. And what do you do with it? Adrian was quiet for a moment. I protect things. People, mostly. Sometimes businesses. Sometimes just the idea that not everyone should get steamrolled by whoever's bigger and meaner. By being bigger and meaner yourself. Exactly. That's hypocritical. Yeah, I know, but it works. People leave my clients alone. They sleep better. I sleep fine. Everyone wins except the assholes. Lena found herself almost smiling. That's a very tidy moral framework. Better than most alternatives I've seen. They were quiet for a while. The gym's climate control hummed softly. Outside the windows, the city went about its business 40 floors below. Can I try something? Lena asked suddenly. What? The heavy bag, over there. She pointed to the punching bag hanging in the corner. You box? No, but I think I want to hit something. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Okay, but let me show you how so you don't break your hand. He walked her through the basics. How to make a fist, where to put her thumb, how to pivot from the hips instead of just swinging her arm. Lena listened, tried to memorize the movements. Now try, Adrian said, stepping back. She hit the bag. It barely moved. Her knuckles stung. Harder. Don't be polite about it. She hit it again, slightly better. Lena, pretend it's everything you're angry at, everything you wish you could have said or done, and then put that into the bag. She tried again. This time the bag actually swung. The impact reverberated up her arm, almost painful but not quite. Good. Again. She hit it again and again and again. Each impact felt like something loosening in her chest, some knot she'd carried for so long she'd forgotten it was there. She wasn't any good at this. Her form was probably terrible. But the physical act of striking something, of making contact, of refusing to be gentle, it felt like power. She kept going until her arms were too tired to lift. When she finally stopped, she was breathing hard, her knuckles red, sweat dripping down her face, and she felt better than she had in days. "How do you feel?" Adrian asked. "Tired." "That's not what I asked." "I feel," she searched for the word, "less trapped." "Good. Can I come back? Do this again?" "It's your gym. Come whenever you want." That phrase still felt foreign. Your gym, your space, your choice. But maybe if she heard it enough times, eventually she'd believe it. They left together, took the elevator back up to the apartment. Lena's legs felt like jelly. Her arms weren't much better. But underneath the exhaustion was something that almost felt like satisfaction. "I'm going to shower," she said when they reached her floor. "Same. Then I've got some calls to make." She nodded, started toward her room, then paused. "Adrian?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for showing me, with the bag." "You did the work. I just gave you permission." "That's what I meant." He looked at her for a long moment. "You're getting stronger. You know that, right?" "I feel like I'm barely holding it together most of the time." "Holding it together is strength. You just don't recognize it yet." Lena didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded and went to her room. The hot shower felt like heaven on her aching muscles. She stood under the spray until the water started running cold, then forced herself out. Clean clothes, dry hair, the simple rituals of existence. She was heading downstairs for food when her phone buzzed. Unknown number again, different from Donald's. She almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. The message was brief. "Your guardian says you need to come home. Says there's been a misunderstanding. He's worried about you." No signature, no context, just manipulation wrapped in concern. Lena stared at the message, waiting for the fear, the guilt, the automatic need to comply. Instead, she felt anger, clean and sharp and focused. Donald wasn't giving up. He was finding new ways in, new pressure points. She forwarded the message to Adrian without comment. His response was immediate. "Who sent this?" "Don't know. Stay in the apartment. I'm making some calls." The command should have bothered her. But right now, with that message burning on her screen, she was grateful someone else was handling it. She found food in the kitchen, leftover pasta from 2 nights ago. Ate it cold standing at the counter because cooking felt like too much effort. Adrian appeared 20 minutes later, his expression hard. "It's his lawyer," he said, trying to establish contact through a third party. Technically, not violating the no-contact boundary since it's not him directly. "So what do we do?" "I've got my lawyer sending a cease and desist, more formal than me just telling him to fuck off. It'll take a few days to process, but it should stop this. And if it doesn't, then we escalate, restraining order, legal consequences, whatever it takes." Lena set down her fork. "Why is he doing this?" "He got what he wanted. The debt's cleared. I'm gone." "Why won't he just leave me alone?" "Because it was never about the debt. It was about control, and you took that away from him." "I didn't take anything. You did. We did. Together. At the restaurant. When you told him the truth." Adrian leaned against the counter. "That's what this is about. You stopped playing the role he created. That's unacceptable to him. So he's going to keep coming. Until he realizes he can't win. Yeah." "How long will that take?" "I don't know. But however long it takes, we deal with it." That word again. We. Like they were a team. Like this was a shared problem instead of her burden. "You don't have to do this," Lena said quietly. "Do what?" "Fight my battles? Protect me. Whatever this is. I know I don't have to. I want to." "Why?" Adrian was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. "Because no one protected my mother. She fought her battles alone for 20 years because she thought she had to. Because she didn't know there was another option." He met her eyes. I can't change that. Can't go back and help her sooner, but I can make sure you don't have to fight alone. So that's what I'm doing. Lena's throat tightened. I don't know how to let people help me. Then you learn, same as everything else. What if I mess it up? Then you mess it up, and we figure it out. That's how learning works. It sounded so simple when he said it, so straightforward, like healing was just a matter of practice and patience. Lena wanted to believe that, wanted to trust that time and safety could actually change something fundamental. But belief was hard when you'd spent 15 years learning the opposite. I'm tired, she said, instead of voicing any of that. Then rest. I'll handle the lawyer stuff. You just focus on existing. Existing feels like enough work for now. Then that's enough. She left him in the kitchen and went back to her room. Lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to sort through everything that had happened in the last week. Donald at the restaurant, the text messages, Adrian's confession about prison, the heavy bag and the way hitting something had felt like breathing after being underwater too long. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Marco's number. Mr. Vale asked me to check the building security logs. Found something you should know about. Donald tried to get up to the apartment this morning. Security stopped him. He was pretty pissed. Figured you'd want to know he's escalating. Lena's stomach dropped. Donald had come here. To this building. Had tried to get to her. She should tell Adrian, should forward this message like she had the other one. Instead, she found herself pulling on shoes, grabbing a jacket, moving before she could think better of it. She took the elevator down to the lobby. Marco was there, talking to the guy behind the security desk. He saw her and his expression shifted. Mrs. Vale, you okay? You texted me about Donald. Yeah, Mr. Vale wanted you to know. Show me the footage. Marco exchanged a glance with the security guard. I don't think. Show me. Something in her voice must have convinced him. He led her behind the desk to a small room lined with monitors, pulled up the recording from that morning. There was Donald, dressed in the same expensive suit he'd worn to the restaurant, talking to security with that warm, paternal smile. She couldn't hear what he was saying, but she could read his body language. Reasonable, concerned, just a worried guardian checking on his ward. The security guard was shaking his head, pointing to a list. Donald's smile faded. He said something else, sharper this time. The guard stood his ground. Donald's mask slipped for just a moment. Pure fury crossed his face before he controlled it, smoothed it over, left with his shoulders tight, his movements controlled. But Lena had seen it, that flash of rage when he didn't get his way. He tried 3 different approaches, Marco said quietly. Friendly, authoritative, then threatening. None of them worked. We've got him flagged. He shows up again. We're calling the police. Lena couldn't look away from the screen, couldn't stop watching Donald's mask crack and reset. This was what he'd always been. This was what she'd lived with for 15 years. She'd just been too close to see it clearly. Mrs. Vale? She blinked, looked at Marco. Thank you for showing me. You sure you're okay? No, but I needed to see it anyway. She went back upstairs, found Adrian in his office, on the phone. He saw her face and wrapped up the call immediately. What happened? I saw the security footage from this morning. His expression hardened. You weren't supposed to I needed to see it. Lena. No, listen. She moved into the room properly, closer than she usually got. I needed to see that he came here, that he tried. Because part of me still doesn't believe it's as bad as everyone keeps saying. Part of me still thinks maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I'm making it worse than it was. It was worse than you remember. Abuse always is. I know. Logically, I know. But seeing him on that footage, seeing his face when he didn't get what he wanted, her voice cracked. That's real. That's concrete. That's not my memory or my interpretation. That's him. Adrian came around the desk slowly. It's also over. He's blocked. He can't get to you. He tried, though. Yeah, he tried, and he failed, and he'll keep failing. You don't know that. I absolutely know that, because I've got resources he doesn't, connections he can't match. And more importantly, I've got motivation. He's a problem I'm going to solve, permanently. The certainty in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it felt like safety. What are you going to do? Lena asked. Nothing illegal, nothing traceable. Just make his life uncomfortable enough that bothering you becomes more trouble than it's worth. Adrian, I'm not going to kill him if that's what you're worried about, though I'd be lying if I said the thought hadn't crossed my mind. He shrugged. But there are better ways. Cleaner ways. Ways that don't end with me back in prison. You said you'd kill him, at the restaurant, if he touched me again. I know what I said. Did you mean it? Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Yes, but I'd prefer not to, for both our sakes. Lena didn't know what to do with that honesty. The casual admission that he'd commit murder if necessary, but would rather find an alternative. You're terrifying sometimes, she said. I know. You want me to be less terrifying? No, I think I need you to be exactly this terrifying, just not toward me. Never toward you. That's the one rule I have. You're off limits, always. The intensity in his voice made something in her chest tighten, made her realize just how much she'd started depending on this man she barely knew. This man who'd bought her freedom with money and leverage and now protected it with the same tools that made him dangerous to everyone else. I should let you get back to work, she said. You're not bothering me. I know, but I need to. She gestured vaguely. Process. Think. Figure out what I feel about all of this. Take your time. I'll be here. She left his office, but instead of going to her room, she went to the library. The space had become her refuge over the last 2 weeks, the place where she could think without feeling watched. She pulled a book at random, didn't even look at the title, and settled into her usual chair. But the words wouldn't come into focus. All she could see was Donald's face on that security footage, the rage underneath the concern, the manipulation underneath the worry, and the realization that she'd escaped, really escaped. He'd come for her and couldn't reach her, had tried to force his way in and been stopped, had attempted to use lawyers and messages and every tool he had, and none of them had worked. Because Adrian had built walls Donald couldn't breach. The relief hit her like a physical thing, made her breath catch, made her eyes burn with tears she'd been holding back for days. She was safe, actually safe. Not pretending, not hoping, not waiting for the other shoe to drop. Safe. The tears came then, silent and overwhelming. She let them fall, didn't try to stop them or hide them or apologize for them. Just sat in the library chair and cried for everything she'd survived and everything she'd lost and everything she was learning to build from the ashes. When the tears finally subsided, she felt emptied out, hollow but clean, like something toxic had been purged. She sat there until the light outside started to fade, watching the city transition from day to night, watching life continue below while hers slowly, painfully, began to transform into something new. Eventually, Lena had to leave the library. Her body demanded food, water, the basic mechanics of survival. She found Adrian in the kitchen again, this time actually cooking something that smelled incredible. You cook? The question came out more surprised than she'd intended. He looked up from whatever he was doing at the stove. Sometimes. When I have time. I thought rich people ordered everything. Rich people do whatever they want. I want to cook. He gestured to the pan. Stir fry. You eat vegetables? I eat whatever's available. That's not what I asked. Lena moved closer, curiosity overriding caution. Yes, I eat vegetables. Good, because I made too much again. He grabbed plates from the cabinet. Marco says I cook like I'm feeding an army. Old habit from prison. You learn to share or you learn to fight. Sharing's easier. She watched him plate the food with more care than she'd expected. Presentation mattered to him, apparently. Or maybe he just didn't know how to do things halfway. They ate at the counter again, standing like they had with the Chinese food. Lena had learned that sitting at the formal dining table felt wrong for both of them. Too much space, too many rules about where people belonged. This is really good, she said after the first bite. You sound surprised. I am, a little. You don't seem like the cooking type. What type do I seem like? Lena considered this. The type who has people to do things for him. I have people. I just don't like them in my space. He ate a piece of broccoli. My mother taught me to cook, said a man who couldn't feed himself was useless. That stuck. She sounds smart. She is. Tough as hell. You'd like her. The casual statement caught Lena off guard. The implication that she might meet his mother. that this situation might extend beyond the immediate crisis. Does she know? Lena asked. About me? About this? She knows I got married. She doesn't know the details. What did you tell her? That I met someone, that it happened fast, that she'd meet you when things settled down. He set down his fork. I don't lie to my mother, but I also don't tell her things that'll make her worry unnecessarily. And me? Am I the unnecessary worry? No, Donald is. She'd be on the first plane down here if she knew what he'd done. Would probably kill him herself. Lena almost smiled at that. Runs in the family. The protective streak? Yeah, we're all like that. My sister, too, she's a prosecutor now. Puts away people like Donald for a living. Do they know what you do? Your real business? Adrian's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. They know enough. They don't ask questions I can't answer. I don't volunteer information they don't need. That's not a real answer. No, it's not. He finished his food, rinsed the plate. My mother knows I'm not exactly legitimate. She made her peace with it a long time ago. My sister pretends she doesn't know. Works better for everyone that way. Must be nice, having family who cares. It is. And you have it now too, whether you figured that out yet or not. Lena stared at him. We barely know each other. So? Family isn't about time. It's about showing up when it matters. And I'm showing up. The words should have felt presumptuous. Instead, they felt like a promise. They cleaned up together, the routine becoming familiar. Wash, dry, put away. Simple tasks that felt grounding in their normalcy. I need to tell you something, Adrian said as he dried the last dish. Lena tensed automatically. What? Donald's lawyer responded to the cease and desist. He's not backing down, claiming he has legal rights as your guardian. I'm 23. He's not my guardian anymore. Technically, no, but he's arguing he should have visitation rights, that cutting off contact is cruel and unusual. That's insane. That's manipulation. He's using the legal system to harass you. It won't work, but it'll be annoying while it plays out. Lena's hands clenched. How long? Could be weeks, could be months. Depends on how stubborn he wants to be and how much money he wants to waste on lawyers. I can't do months of this. You won't have to deal with it directly. My lawyer handles everything. You just live your life. While he attacks from a distance. While he fails to attack. There's a difference. Lena wanted to believe that. Wanted to trust that legal paperwork was a real barrier, but she'd spent too long learning that paper meant nothing compared to will. What if he shows up again? She asked quietly. Then Marco calls the police. We have documentation. Restraining order will be approved if he violates the no contact more than once. After that, it's criminal charges if he tries. You've thought about this. I've planned for every scenario. That's what I do. The certainty in his voice should have been comforting, but Lena had learned that certainty was dangerous, that absolute statements led to absolute disappointments. I'm going to my room, she said abruptly. Lena, I just need space. To think. He nodded, didn't push. I'll be here if you need anything. She left before he could say more, before she could voice the fear crawling up her throat. In her room, she paced, back and forth across the too soft carpet, her mind spinning scenarios she couldn't control. Donald getting past security. Donald finding a legal loophole. Donald wearing her down until she gave in just to make it stop. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. Another unknown number. Another message. You think you're safe there? You think he'll protect you forever? Men like Adrian Vale don't keep pets they can't control. When he gets bored, you'll have nowhere to go. Better to come home now while I'm still willing to forgive. The words were designed to hit every pressure point, every fear, every doubt. And they worked. Lena's hand shook as she forwarded the message to Adrian. She sat on the edge of the bed, waiting for his response, her breath coming too fast. He appeared at her door 30 seconds later. Didn't knock. Just opened it and walked in like he had every right. How did he get this number? Lena asked. I don't know. But I'm going to find out. Adrian's expression was controlled fury. And then I'm going to make sure it never happens again. He's right, though. About what? About you getting bored. About me having nowhere to go. About... Stop. Adrian moved closer, still maintaining distance, but not as much as before. Listen to me very carefully. That message is psychological warfare. It's designed to make you doubt yourself, doubt me, doubt that you have any option except going back to him. But what if? No. No what ifs, facts only. Fact 1, you're safe here. Fact 2, I don't get bored of people who matter. Fact 3, even if something happened to me tomorrow, you'd be taken care of. I've made sure of it. Lena looked up at him. What do you mean? I mean, I've set up accounts in your name. Money that's yours, no strings attached. If you want to leave tomorrow, you have the means. If something happens to me, you still have the means. You're not trapped. Not by me, not by circumstance, not by anything. The words didn't make sense. Why would you do that? Because your freedom can't depend on my presence. That's not freedom. That's just a different cage. I don't understand you. I know, but you will. He left her phone on the nightstand, walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. Tomorrow, he said, we're going somewhere. Where? You'll see. Wear comfortable clothes. Then he was gone, leaving Lena with more questions than answers and a phone full of threats she couldn't escape. She didn't sleep well that night. Dreams mixed with memories, Donald's voice echoing through both. When morning came, she felt exhausted down to her bones. But she got up, got dressed in jeans and a sweater like Adrian had said, found him waiting in the kitchen with coffee and a look of determination. Ready? He asked. For what? An answer to some questions you haven't asked yet. They drove for 40 minutes, out of the city into suburbs that looked increasingly residential. Adrian didn't talk much, just focused on the road with that same intensity he brought to everything. Finally, he pulled up in front of a small office building. Neat, professional, anonymous. What is this? Lena asked. Lawyer's office. Mine, specifically. The one handling your case. I don't have a case. You do now. Come on. Inside, they were led to a conference room. A woman, maybe 50 years old, with kind eyes and steel in her posture, stood to greet them. Lena Hart, she said, extending a hand. I'm Sarah Chen. I've been working with Adrian on your situation. Lena shook her hand automatically. What situation? Your emancipation from Donald's guardianship. Your financial independence. Your legal protection from harassment. Sarah gestured to chairs. Sit. Let me show you what we've put together. The next hour was a blur of paperwork and explanations. Documents proving Lena's age and legal adulthood. Accounts opened in her name with balances that made her dizzy. Restraining order applications. Cease and desist letters. Evidence of Donald's harassment, compiled and organized. This is all... Lena couldn't find words. This is mine? Every bit of it, Sarah confirmed. Adrian funded the accounts, but they're in your name only. He has no access, no control. They're yours to do with as you please. Why? Sarah looked at Adrian. He looked at Lena. Because you needed options, he said simply, and I could provide them. But I could leave. Take all this money and just disappear. You could. That's the point. Lena stared at the papers spread across the conference table, at the proof that she had resources, had rights, had choices. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Sarah said gently. This is just making official what should have been true from the start. You're an adult. You have agency. You deserve protection under the law. Donald's going to fight this. Let him. We have documentation. We have witnesses. We have a paper trail of his harassment. The more he fights, the worse he looks. Sarah's expression hardened. Men like Donald depend on their victims staying silent and isolated. You're neither anymore. After the meeting, Adrian drove them back toward the city, but instead of going to the apartment, he took a different exit. Where are we going now? Lena asked. One more stop, if you're up for it. I don't have much choice, do I? You always have a choice. I can turn around right now if you want. Lena thought about it, about going back to the apartment, back to safety and isolation, and waiting for the next attack. Keep going, she said. They ended up at a storage facility. Adrian led her to a unit on the 3rd floor, unlocked it, pulled up the door. Inside were boxes, dozens of them, all labeled with her name. What is this? Lena's voice came out whisper quiet. Your things, from Donald's house. I had Marco collect them last week. Everything that was yours. Clothes, books, anything personal. You went into his house? I had legal authority. You're my wife. Your property is my concern. He gestured to the boxes. I didn't know what you wanted to keep, so I had them bring everything. You can sort through it whenever you're ready. Or never. Your choice. Lena moved into the space slowly, started opening boxes at random. Her clothes, threadbare, outdated, nothing she'd chosen. Books, the few Donald had allowed. A shoebox full of photos from before, when her parents were still alive. She'd forgotten about those photos, had assumed they were lost. Her hands trembled as she opened the box, saw her mother's face, her father's smile, herself as a child, before everything went wrong. I thought these were gone, she whispered. Adrian stayed by the door, giving her space. He kept them in his office, bottom drawer of the desk. Marco found them. Why would he keep them if he didn't want me to have them? Control. He could always use them as leverage. Give them back as a reward for good behavior. Take them away as punishment. Lena's jaw clenched. Even her memories hadn't been her own. She went through more boxes, found nothing she wanted except the photos and a few books. Everything else was evidence of a life she was trying to leave behind. Can we get rid of the rest? She asked. All of it? Everything except the photos and books. I don't want any of it. Done. I'll have Marco donate what's usable. Trash the rest. Lena clutched the shoebox and 3 books to her chest. Her entire past reduced to items she could carry in one trip. It felt right somehow. Starting over meant leaving things behind. They drove back to the apartment in silence. Lena kept the shoebox in her lap, her fingers tracing the edges. Thank you, she said as they pulled into the garage. For what? For getting these. For letting me choose what to keep. For all of it. You're welcome. Upstairs, Lena went straight to her room, spread the photos across her bed. Her parents looked so young, so happy, so unaware of what was coming. She'd been 5 when they died. Car accident, sudden. Donald had been her father's friend, the obvious choice for guardian. No one had known, no one had suspected. By the time anyone might have noticed something wrong, she was too well trained to tell. A knock on her door pulled her from the memories. Come in, she called. Adrian entered with 2 mugs. Tea. Thought you might need it. I don't drink tea. Try it anyway. Sometimes what we need isn't what we think we need. She took the mug, sipped. It was sweet, herbal, calming in a way she hadn't expected. Adrian sat in the chair by the window, not on the bed, keeping distance even now. You did good today, he said. I just looked at boxes. You made choices about your past. That's harder than it sounds. Lena set down the mug. Can I ask you something? Always. Why did you really do all this? The lawyer, the accounts, the storage unit. It's more than just helping someone escape a bad situation. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, more honest than she'd heard before. When I was 16, my mother finally left my father, but she had nothing. No money, no education, no support system. She'd spent 20 years being told she was worthless, that she couldn't survive without him. And she almost believed it. He paused, looking out the window at the city below. The first year after she left was hell. We lived in a shelter, then a shitty apartment with 4 other families. She worked 3 jobs. My sister and I did whatever we could. And the whole time I watched her struggle with the choice she'd made, wondering if she'd been wrong, if going back would be easier. But she didn't go back. No, she didn't, because she had us, because we needed her to be strong. But it cost her, cost all of us. He looked at Lena. I learned something then. Freedom without resources isn't really freedom. It's just a different kind of prison. So when I got the chance to help someone escape, I made sure they'd have what my mother didn't. Real options, real power. I'm not your mother. No, you're not. But you deserve better than what you got. And I could provide that. So I did. Lena absorbed this. The pieces clicking together. Adrian Vale, dangerous man, doing dangerous things for surprisingly human reasons. Your father, she said carefully. Is he still alive? No, heart attack when I was 23. I was already in prison. Didn't get to go to the funeral. Do you regret that? No. Only regret is that my mother spent so many years with him. But that was her choice, her journey. I just wish she'd left sooner. The room fell quiet. Outside, evening was turning to night. Inside, two people who'd both learned about survival in the hardest ways possible sat in surprisingly comfortable silence. I should let you rest, Adrian said finally, standing. Tomorrow's Sunday. No obligations, sleep in, do nothing, whatever you want. Adrian? He paused at the door. I'm glad I'm here, instead of there. I know I don't say it enough, but I am. Something crossed his face, almost vulnerability, almost relief. Good, he said simply, then left. Lena gathered up the photos, put them in the shoebox, set it carefully on the dresser. Tomorrow she'd find frames, make them real again instead of hidden away. Tonight she'd sleep knowing she had resources, had options, had someone watching her back who didn't expect anything in return. It wasn't perfect. Nothing was. But it was better than anything she'd known before. And maybe, just maybe, it was enough to build on. Sunday morning arrived with unexpected quiet. Lena woke naturally for the first time in weeks. No alarm, no anxiety pulling her from sleep. Just sunlight through the windows and the distant hum of the city. She lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, trying to recognize this version of herself. The version that didn't automatically brace for impact. That could wake up without immediately cataloging potential threats. It felt foreign, but not bad. Eventually, hunger forced her up. She found Adrian already in the kitchen, reading something on his tablet, coffee half finished beside him. Morning, he said without looking up. Morning. She started the coffee maker, the routine automatic now. What are you reading? News? Nothing interesting? He set down the tablet. How'd you sleep? Better than expected. Good. They fell into silence. Not uncomfortable, just present. Lena made toast, added butter and jam she'd found in the refrigerator 2 days ago. Adrian went back to his tablet. Normal. This was what normal felt like. I want to get frames, Lena said suddenly. For the photos. From the storage unit. Adrian glanced up. There's a place downtown, art supply store. They do custom framing. We can go after breakfast if you want. You don't have to come. I know, but I want to, unless you'd rather go alone? Lena considered this. The idea of navigating the city by herself still felt overwhelming. But having Adrian there, solid and steady and undemanding, that felt manageable. No, I'd like you to come. They finished breakfast and headed out. The art supply store was exactly what Adrian had promised. Walls lined with frames in every size and style imaginable. An older woman with paint-stained hands greeted them, asked what they needed. Lena explained about the photos. The woman led them to a section with simple wooden frames, classic and clean. How many photos? She asked. Lena realized she didn't know. Maybe 15, 20? We'll take 20, Adrian said. Mixed sizes, whatever works. They spent an hour selecting frames, the woman offering advice about matting and glass and preservation. Lena found herself actually enjoying it, making choices about something that mattered, creating something instead of just surviving. When they finally left, arms full of packages, Lena felt lighter than she had in days. Thank you, she said as they loaded everything into the car. You keep thanking me for normal things. They're not normal to me. Adrian paused, hand on the car door. They should be. That's the whole point. Back at the apartment, Lena spread the frames across her bedroom floor, opened the shoebox carefully, started matching photos to frames, trying to remember context for each image. Her mother laughing at something off camera, her father holding her as a toddler. The three of them together at what might have been a beach. She'd forgotten so much. 15 years of survival had buried the before under layers of just getting through. A knock interrupted her sorting. Come in. Adrian entered with a toolkit. Figured you might need help hanging them. I can do it. I know you can. I'm offering anyway. They worked together, Lena deciding placement, while Adrian handled the actual installation. She lined them up on the wall across from her bed, a gallery of before. A reminder that she'd existed before Donald, that her life had included love once. They look good, Adrian said when the last frame was level. They look sad. They look like proof you survived. Lena studied the wall. He was right, in a way. These photos proved she'd had something worth surviving for, worth holding on to even when holding on felt impossible. My parents would have hated what Donald did, she said quietly. They would have fought for me. They would have. And they'd be proud of you now, for fighting for yourself. I'm not fighting. You're fighting. I'm just existing. Existing despite everything is fighting. Don't diminish that. Lena wanted to argue, but the truth was she was tired of minimizing herself, tired of making herself smaller to fit other people's comfort. Okay, she said instead. Adrian gathered the tools. I need to make some calls, business stuff. You good? Yeah, I'm good. After he left, Lena lay on her bed looking at the photos. At proof she'd been loved once, at evidence that her value didn't start with Donald's version of her. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, but something made her check. Marco's number. Security flagged something. Donald's been sitting in his car across the street for the last 30 minutes, not trying to enter, just watching. Figured you should know. The peace she'd felt all morning evaporated instantly. Lena's chest tightened. Her hands started shaking. He was out there, watching, waiting. She forwarded the message to Adrian, then sat frozen on her bed, trying to remember how to breathe properly. Adrian appeared in her doorway 30 seconds later. He can't get in, he said immediately. Security's been doubled. Marco's watching him. If he makes one move toward this building, we call the police. He's just sitting there. I know. Why? What does he want? To intimidate you, to remind you he's still there, to make you feel unsafe. Adrian moved closer. But you are safe. That's the important part. He's out there making himself obvious, and we're in here protected. He's the one exposed. It doesn't feel like that. I know, but it's true anyway. Lena's hands wouldn't stop shaking. How long is he going to keep doing this? Until we make him stop. Adrian pulled out his phone. I'm calling Sarah. Time to escalate. To what? Restraining order. Now. Not waiting for him to violate the cease and desist again. This counts as harassment. Sitting outside someone's building for 30 minutes documenting their residence. Will it work? It'll give us legal leverage, and it'll put him on notice that we're not playing. Adrian left to make the call. Lena stayed on her bed, trying not to look at her phone, trying not to imagine Donald sitting in his car with his eyes on this building. On her. 20 minutes later, Adrian returned. Sarah's filing the paperwork now. Emergency order. Should be approved by tomorrow. Once it is, if Donald comes within 500 feet of this building, it's automatic arrest. He'll find another way. Then we'll handle that too. Lena, look at me. She did. He's losing. That's why he's escalating. That's why he's sitting out there making dramatic gestures instead of actually doing anything. He knows his control is gone. This is desperation. Desperation is dangerous. So am I. And I'm on your side. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring, but Lena couldn't shake the image of Donald out there, waiting, watching. I want to see, she said suddenly. See what? Him. Where he is, I need to see. That's not a good idea. I need to. She stood. Please. Adrian studied her for a long moment, finally nodded. Okay, but from security, not from a window where he might see you. They went down to the lobby. Marco led them to the security office, pulled up the camera feed showing the street. There was Donald's car, black sedan. Expensive. Parked across the street with a clear view of the building entrance. Lena couldn't see him through the tinted windows, but she knew he was there. He's been sitting there an hour now, Marco said. Haven't seen him move. No phone calls. Just sitting. That's insane, Lena whispered. That's obsession, Adrian corrected, and it's about to cost him. As they watched, a police car pulled up behind Donald's sedan. 2 officers got out, approached the driver's side. Did you call them? Lena asked. I did, Marco said. Told them someone was casing the building. Suspicious vehicle. They're required to check it out. On screen, Donald got out of his car. Even from the camera's distance, Lena could see his body language. Defensive. Entitled. The posture of a man who believed rules didn't apply to him. The officers talked to him for several minutes. Donald gestured at the building, pointed, explained something. He's telling them about you, Adrian said, probably claiming he has legitimate reason to be here. Does that work? Not with harassment documentation already filed. Watch. One of the officers got on his radio. The conversation shifted. Donald's posture changed. Less confident, more cornered. After another few minutes, the officers sent him away. Donald got in his car, pulled out, drove down the street and disappeared from view. That's it? Lena said. For now, Adrian replied. They documented the incident, ran his plates. He's in the system now. When the restraining order comes through tomorrow, he'll already have a record of being warned away. Makes it harder for him to claim ignorance. Lena watched the empty street where Donald's car had been. He'll be back. Maybe. Maybe not. He's running out of moves. They went back upstairs. Lena's hands had stopped shaking, but the fear had settled deeper, into her bones, into the part of her that had learned early that safety was temporary and threats were patient. I hate this, she said once they were back in the apartment. I hate that he can still do this, still make me afraid. That's normal. It doesn't feel normal. It feels like weakness. Fear isn't weakness. Fear is information, your body telling you to be careful. That's survival instinct. That's smart. Then why do I feel so helpless? Adrian leaned against the counter. Because fear and action feel incompatible. But they're not. You can be afraid and still move forward. That's courage. I'm tired of being courageous. I want to just be normal. Give it time. Everyone keeps saying that, time, like it's magic. Like enough time will just fix everything. It won't fix everything, but it'll make it manageable. That's all healing is. Making the unmanageable manageable. Lena wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this feeling, this constant low-level terror, would eventually fade. But she'd lived with fear for 15 years. It was harder to unlearn than he seemed to understand. The restraining order came through Monday afternoon. Sarah called personally to explain the terms. 500 feet minimum distance. No contact of any kind. Violation meant immediate arrest. How do we know he got served? Lena asked. Police delivered it this morning, Sarah said. He signed for it. There's no question he knows the terms. So, that's it? He has to stay away now? Legally, yes. Whether he will is another question, but if he doesn't, consequences are automatic, no gray area. After the call, Lena felt cautiously hopeful. Maybe this would work. Maybe Donald would back off. Maybe she could finally breathe. 3 days of quiet followed. No messages, no sightings, no harassment. Lena started to relax, started to believe maybe it was over. Then Thursday morning, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello? Lena. Donald's voice, warm, paternal, devastating in its familiarity. Sweetheart, we need to talk. Her breath caught. You're not supposed to contact me. I know, the restraining order, that whole mess. But surely we can have one conversation? Clear the air? No, we can't. This call is violating... I'm your family, Lena. I raised you. You owe me a conversation at least. The old hooks, the old manipulation. But something had changed in Lena. Something Adrian had helped build over the last 3 weeks. I don't owe you anything, she said, voice shaking but clear. After everything I did for you, you abused me for 15 years. That's what you did for me. Silence on the line. Then Donald's voice changed, colder, sharper. You ungrateful little bitch. After I took you in, gave you everything. This is how you repay me? By surviving. Yes, this is exactly how I repay you. You think Adrian Vale gives a shit about you? You're a possession to him, a toy. When he's done playing, you'll have nothing, no one, and I won't take you back. Good. I don't want you to. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is not leaving sooner. Lena hung up. Her whole body was shaking. But underneath the fear was something else. Something that felt like power. She'd hung up on him, had spoken her truth, had chosen herself. She immediately called Adrian. He contacted me, called my phone, violated the restraining order. Did you record it? No, I didn't think. It's okay. Phone companies keep records. We'll get the log. This is good. Good? How is this good? Because now he's committed a crime with evidence. Sarah can have him arrested. Just for calling? Just for calling. He signed papers saying he understood the terms. He violated them anyway. That's contempt. That's arrestable. Within 2 hours, police had been notified. By that evening, Donald had been arrested at his home. Booked. Released on bail with stricter conditions. Sarah called to explain. He's on electronic monitoring now. Can't leave his property without permission. Can't use phone or internet without supervision. Any violation and he goes back to jail. No bail. So it's over? Lena asked. It's contained. Whether it's over depends on his choices. Lena hung up feeling numb. Donald arrested. Donald monitored. Donald finally facing consequences. It didn't feel real. That night she found Adrian in the library. He was reading, glasses on, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him in days. "Hey," she said from the doorway. He looked up. "Hey, you okay?" "I don't know. Should I feel relieved? Because mostly I just feel tired." "Tired is normal. You've been running on adrenaline for weeks. Now that the immediate threat's handled, your body's crashing." Lena moved into the room, sat in her usual chair. What if he doesn't stop? What if he gets out and comes after me anyway? Then we handle it. But Lena, he's facing real consequences now. That changes things. Most men like Donald are cowards at heart. When their power gets challenged by actual authority, they fold. You sound certain. I've seen it before. Multiple times. The bullies who thrive on control and fear, they're the first ones to comply when someone bigger shows up. Lena wanted to believe that. Wanted to trust that Donald would just accept defeat and move on. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you live your life. Figure out what you want, who you want to be, without him in the equation." "I don't know how to do that." "None of us do at first. That's what the time is for." There was that word again. But this time, Lena thought she might actually understand it. Time to figure out who she was beneath the fear. Time to build something that belonged to her. Time to become someone who existed independently of trauma. "I want to get a job," she said suddenly. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Yeah?" "Yeah, something real. Where I do something and get paid for it. Where I'm useful but not trapped." "What kind of job?" "I don't know. I don't have skills. I don't have experience. I don't even have a high school diploma officially." "So we get you a GED. Then figure out what interests you. Then find something that fits." Adrian set down his book. "What do you like doing?" "I don't know. I've never had the option to find out." "So that's where we start. Trying things, seeing what sticks." The idea felt both terrifying and exciting. Choice as a tool instead of a trap. "Okay," Lena said. "Let's do that." The next few weeks developed their own rhythm. Lena started GED prep courses online. Spent mornings studying, afternoons experimenting with different activities, cooking, art, writing, trying to find what resonated. She discovered she liked baking, the precision of it, the chemistry of transforming ingredients into something new. She started making bread, cookies, cakes. Filled the kitchen with flour dust and the smell of vanilla. Adrian ate everything she made, offered honest feedback, never complained about the constant experimentation. "You're good at this," he said one evening, eating what had to be her 20th attempt at croissants. "They're still not right. The layers aren't even." "They're delicious anyway." "Delicious isn't the same as good." Says who? Lena considered this. She'd been raised to believe perfection was the only acceptable standard. That good enough was the same as failure. "Says me, I guess," she admitted. "Then maybe that's something to unlearn. Perfection is boring. Character comes from the flaws." She thought about that while making another batch. Let herself be okay with uneven layers and slightly burnt edges. Found that Adrian was right. The imperfections made it more interesting. Donald's monitoring continued. No violations, no contact attempts. 3 weeks passed, then 4, then 6. Sarah called with updates. Donald was complying with all terms, seemed to be accepting the situation. "I'm recommending we keep the restraining order in place indefinitely," she said. "But unless something changes, I think he's back down." Lena wanted to celebrate, wanted to believe it was truly over, but she'd learned to be cautious with hope. "What if he's just waiting?" she asked Adrian after the call. "Then he's waiting forever. Because the order doesn't expire, and we're not letting our guard down. So I just live like this forever, looking over my shoulder? No, you live your life. We just stay prepared. There's a difference. Prepared instead of paralyzed, cautious instead of controlled. Lena thought she could live with that. 2 months after the restraining order, Adrian came home with papers. "What's this?" Lena asked. "Annulment option, if you want it." Her heart stuttered. "What?" "Our marriage. It was arranged, coerced technically, since you didn't have real choice. Sarah says we can annul it. Make it like it never happened." "Why would you?" "Because I want you to have the option to choose for yourself. Not because of debt or obligation or fear, just because you want to." Lena stared at the papers, at the legal proof that she could walk away, could erase this chapter completely, could start over with nothing tying her to Adrian or this situation. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "I want you to be free, whatever that looks like for you." "That's not an answer." Adrian set down the papers, met her eyes. "I want you to stay, but not because you're trapped, not because you owe me, because you choose to. That's the only version of this that matters to me. And if I choose to leave, then I help you leave. Make sure you have everything you need. Stay in your life if you want me there. Disappear if you don't. Your choice. Always." Lena looked at the papers, at the proof of her freedom, at the man who'd bought her out of hell and was now offering to set her completely free. The answer should have been complicated, should have required thought and analysis and careful consideration. But standing in the kitchen of the apartment that had become home, looking at the man who'd shown her what protection without possession looked like, the answer was simpler than she'd expected. "I don't want the annulment," she said. "You don't have to decide now." "I'm not deciding now. I decided weeks ago. I just didn't know how to say it." Adrian went very still. "Lena, I'm not staying because I'm trapped. I'm staying because, for the first time in my life, I feel like I can breathe. Because you gave me space when I needed it and showed up when I asked. Because you never demanded performance or perfection or gratitude. You don't have to explain." "Yes, I do, because I need you to know this is a choice, my choice, the first real one I've ever made." She picked up the annulment papers, set them aside. "I'm staying, not as your wife because a piece of paper says so, but because I want to figure out who I am with you around. Because I think we're building something that matters. Because I choose this." Adrian's expression shifted, something vulnerable breaking through the usual control. "You're sure?" "I'm terrified, but I'm sure. Those can both be true." "I know. You taught me that." He moved closer, stopped a few feet away. That same respectful distance he'd maintained for 2 months. "Where do we go from here?" "I don't know. I've never done this before, the choosing part." "Me neither, not like this." "So we figure it out together?" "Yeah, together." Lena took a breath, took a step forward, closed the distance between them for the first time by her own choice. Adrian went very still, didn't move, let her control the moment. She reached out, put her hand on his chest, felt his heartbeat under her palm, steady, real, present. "Is this okay?" she asked. "More than okay." She leaned in, rested her forehead against his shoulder, let herself be close to another human being without fear for the first time in 15 years. Adrian's arms came up slowly, carefully, gave her time to pull back. When she didn't, they settled around her, gentle, protective, nothing like the touch she'd learned to fear. They stood like that for a long time, just breathing, just being, just choosing each other in the quietest, most profound way possible. When they finally separated, Lena felt different, lighter, like some weight she'd been carrying had finally been set down. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For showing me what freedom actually feels like." "You did that yourself. I just held the door open." "That's more than anyone else ever did." 6 months later, Lena passed her GED, enrolled in community college, started taking business classes because she'd discovered she liked the logic of numbers and systems. She got a part-time job at a bakery downtown, learned professional techniques, made connections, started building a life that belonged entirely to her. Donald never contacted her again. The restraining order remained in place. Lena stopped checking over her shoulder quite so often. She and Adrian figured out what marriage looked like when both people were free to choose it, learned each other's rhythms, built something that wasn't based on ownership or obligation, but on actual partnership. It wasn't perfect. Nothing was. They had fights, disagreements, moments of frustration and misunderstanding. But they had something more important than perfection. They had choice. They had respect. They had the freedom to be themselves without performance or pretense. And slowly, carefully, painfully, Lena learned what it meant to exist without shrinking, to take up space without apologizing, to be human instead of just surviving. The scars on her back never disappeared. The memories never fully faded. The fear occasionally resurfaced in unexpected moments, but she learned to carry them differently. Not as evidence of what was wrong with her, but as proof of what she'd survived, what she'd overcome, what she'd built from the ashes. 1 year after their wedding, Adrian asked Lena if she wanted to renew their vows. "Why?" she asked. "We're already married." "Because the first time you didn't have a choice. This time you do. I want you to choose me the same way I choose you, consciously, deliberately, free." So they did. Small ceremony. Just them and Marco and Sarah and Adrian's mother and sister who'd flown down from Vermont. No big production, no performance. Just two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and decided to build something new. When the officiant asked if Lena took Adrian to be her husband, she didn't hesitate. "I do. I choose this. I choose you." And for the first time in her life, those words meant exactly what they were supposed to mean: freedom, partnership, choice. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. And that made all the difference.